To order, it is 6:00 p.m. Ashley, can you do roll call for us?
Yes. Board Chair Julie Fishback.
Here, speaking.
Board Vice Chair Ellen Ermis. Here. Board Member Erica Ibarra.
Here.
Board Member Ryan Ramirez. Here. Board Member Susan Segalo.
Here.
Board Member Holly Wilson.
Here.
Board Member Chanel Walker will not be joining us tonight. She did let us know ahead of time. So if we can have the board make motion to excuse.
I'll make a motion to excuse.
I'll
second that.
Oh, go ahead.
I second.
Do we need to call a vote? Okay. Call a vote to excuse Board Member Chanel's absence.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, with roll call done, we'll do approval of minutes. We're going to consider approval of the Parks and Recreation Board October 27th, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome, motion passes. And then we'll move on to the citizen comment period. The Parks and Recreation Board welcomes comments from citizens early in the agenda of Parks and Recreation Board meetings. Those wishing to speak are encouraged to sign in before the meeting begins. Speakers may be provided with an opportunity to speak during this time period on any agenda item or any other matter concerning city business, and they must observe the 3-minute time limit. Do we have any citizen comments?
I passed out copies of the monthly newsletter that the Kyle Area Senior Zone publishes, as well as a list of the year-end achievements on that sheet. It's listed by ongoing events and then by month to month, the different seasonal events that we do. We have over 1,500 members now, and we'll be moving this spring, probably late spring, March, April, to the new facility behind Ascension Seton Hospital. I'm their communications chair, so we appreciate all that the city does for us. And often in December, we don't get much time in the building because all of the Christmas events, but we've been able to carry on this month as usual. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Do we have any other citizen comments? All right, excellent. So we'll move on to agenda item 4, staff reports and presentations. First up, we're going to receive a report, hold a discussion, and provide staff feedback regarding public engagement and conceptual plan updates for the Lake Kensington Nature Park Master Plan.
Good evening, Parks Board. Will Atkinson for the record. Before you, we have the Lake Kensington Nature Park presentation. We're excited to give y'all some updates. Just a few key facts about it, and then I'll turn it over to our Mesa team. As y'all may know, the site is slightly northeast of Seton Hayes Hospital, the area outlined in orange right there. It's about 115 acres and has a mix of the northern Blackland Prairie ecoregion, and is surrounded by neighborhoods, schools, and healthcare facilities. So we think when it's built and designed and built that the citizenry is going to love it. It is functionally a conservation service reservoir for flood control and water storage and erosion prevention. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Fred Walters and his team. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Will. Good evening, Parks Board. Thank you for having us here this evening. With me, we've got two other team members. Patrick Potomi, he's the project manager, and we have Michelle. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. It was a long drive, sorry. With Blackland Collaborative, so she's going to have some remarks as well regarding the site. So just a little bit about the background of the project. part of our background research, looked at the pros plan that took place, and there were some recommendations that were brought forth about the project site. Sort of highlighting those were that we are to bring forward a wide variety of programming and amenities, basically leverage the lake as much as we can, and do some appropriate improvements such as trails, walkways, interpretive areas, things of that nature. So the area is ecologically rich, which again, Michelle is going to talk about that. And so the thing that we needed to do as part of our project mission is to protect the existing trees and habitat and bring forward that element of the site as much as we can while balancing the recreational needs of the community. A little bit about the context of the site. There is another city-owned property on the north side of Daisy Lane, which is Seton Park. There's some great possibilities, some great landscape over there. There's a sort of a creekway that comes down through our project site. Our project area itself is that area that you see bounded in white. As Will indicated, it's approximately 115 acres or so. The water body itself within it, though split by the boundaries, around 22 surface acres. It is bounded by some residential neighborhoods, primarily being Kensington Trails neighborhood with direct adjacency, and on the other side being the South Lake Ranch neighborhood that also sort of touches on it and some use there. So Daisy Lane crosses is our northern boundary of the site, and there's two sort of gateway elements or two access points to the site from Daisy Lane currently. Michelle, I'll let you talk about the ecology a little bit.
So my name is Michelle Bertelson. I'm an ecologist with Blackland Collaborative, and we did a site assessment on this property a few months ago. It's a neat property. We enjoyed our time there. This site, the soils tell us that this site is historically a Blackland prairie, so it would have been a sea of grasses as far as the eye can see. Currently, it's in a typical condition as a formerly agricultural land that finds itself in an urban area is. So it's not in pristine condition. It's probably moderate. So it has a lot of invasive species, so that's an issue. It's lost a lot of its native flora, but it still has the soils. The soils are good and we have water, and so it has this incredible potential for uplift. We can make this site a very, very special place, a very healthy place. Currently right now, the uplands are sort of what we call encroached prairie, so we have little bit of remnants of the prairie and then sort of woody species coming into that prairie that wouldn't have been there originally. And then down by the water, we have a very young, I just lost the word for woodland, a very young woodland that is primarily cedar, elm, and hackberry. And so what's exciting about a young woodland is that we can help it grow faster. So those older, slower growing trees that aren't there right now, we can help bring those back over time. Improving this site over time, we are going to have to think about as we design the site. We'll have to think about the timing of that, and we'll think about how that integrates with the activities that we're planning. But it's got a lot of potential, this little site.
So part of what we do when we look at a site is assess its various qualities. And we did a lot of stuff here, and we're not going to do a heavy, granular, deep dive. That'll all be covered in our final report. But some things we do want to bring to your attention in some of these adjacent areas, we do what we call an experiential assessment. And what that is about is really understanding sort of the physical and emotion connections that we can bring for visitors to the site by capitalizing on what's there, or how do we try to mitigate maybe some things that are not so pleasant. So some of the zones that are around the site that we would call to your attention is that North Woody Creekway. That's an area in Seton Park. It's a riparian area that feeds our site. It feeds the lake. There's a lot of wildlife movement through that area, and that's potentially an opportunity. There's what we call the Daisy Lane Crossing. That can be a barrier, but there may be ways that we can deal with that in terms of accessing the site from the north. Right now, it's sort of an FM road bridge. It's a bit noisy. There's not a lot of access on there, so that'll be some things that we may have to overcome. For example, the noise off there is something that in our design we have to be cognizant of as we look at the master plan. Of course, there's the stormwater basin up there on the north side. But as we move down into the park side proper, that area in orange to the east, we call it the Kensington Trails adjacency. And that's an important area because what it is, it's a lot of invasive material, but it does provide a sort of green buffer, if you will, between the neighborhood and the park. You know, the idea as we see the park like this is that it's to be sort of a respite from the urban activities and that type of thing. And so it'd be great if we could sort of keep that urban stuff sort of at bay or not so visible. So that's an important area for us to keep in mind with the park. On the other side is what we call the western shoreline. It's a wonderful natural edge. It's not part of our site to do anything with, but it does represent what we call sort of the borrowed landscape, if you will. And so that particular edge is something that's going to be really important. There's the dam and spillway, which is a big, impressive thing that it's hard to get away from. But there's some wonderful views from the top of that dam that hopefully we can take advantage of. Sort of within the site, I crossed over in some of these areas before, but there's some great views. There's an existing boat ramp, for example, that I don't know that we're going to do anything with, and that's in that West Edges area. It is also adjacent to some existing development. But the successional pasture that you see in sort of that mossy green area at the top, that's the primary area that we would be looking at as far as what Michelle was alluding to in terms of restoring that Blackland Prairie. The darker green park in the middle, what we call the North Woody Creekway, that's where a lot of riparian forest is going on. So we have the opportunity in a very small space that we can bring a lot of environmental diversity and activity to the master plan. So we're really excited about this and what this can mean. One of the other things that we look at in terms of park design is suitability. And in this case, it's about suitability for improvements. And there's various layers that we do. We sort of take each layer, if you will, and we look at what areas are most suitable for development, which areas are most sensitive that we want to stay out of. So there's soils, and that's about the physical properties of the soil. Can you build on it? What does it offer ecologically? There's habitat suitability. Slope, that's a factor because of ADA and access and trails and construction facilities and things like that. And of course, there's the hydrological. In this case, that's a big red area because the majority of our site is floodplain. We can do improvements in floodplains, such as trails, parking lots, and various types of construction. We could do stilted structures, but moving around a lot of dirt is probably something we're going to want to try to stay away from at this point in time as we look at the plan. On site, there's nothing significantly cultural. We had a cultural assessment done, so they didn't find any sort of archaeological remains or nothing like that, so we don't necessarily have to worry about that. The closest being on the other side of Daisy Lane, which there was a site that was discovered prior to our project via another study, so we're just sort of recognizing that and being aware of its proximity. So what you see here is basically the areas of the site that are most suitable for quote-unquote development would be that area on the back side of the dam. So the wider areas are what are most suitable. Though the area adjacent to Kensington Trails neighborhood shows up as white, that's not an area that we necessarily want to do a lot of development because it's like right on somebody's backyard. The other area is that Blackland Prairie zone. But again, we've got maybe some different thoughts about that. And of course, these darker colored areas are areas that are more sensitive, so we don't necessarily see a lot of high impact development going on in that. So as we look at that stuff, we begin to test the layers of data that we got from looking at the PROS plan, but also the public input and engagement and what we garnered from the public to understand how do we move forward, what needs to be the best program. So I'm going to let Patrick talk about that a little bit.
Good evening. Upon completion of the site analysis and inventory approach in this project, we went out for public engagement and did a variety of activities, including an open house back in August. Right after that open house, we put out a website where the public at large can access the various research documents that have been provided so far from Michelle and her team and our other sub-consultants as well. And as well as an online survey that was hosted on that website. That survey ultimately closed on October 20th, and we had 158 respondents, which we were very happy to hear that there was a great turnout for the survey. We also participated in HOA meetings with Kensington Trails and South Lake Ranch at that time. Just to give you a quick synopsis of some of the survey results that came in, we wanted to break down some of the key points, if you will. So from adventure recreation activity standpoint, we saw that jogging and biking trails were highly desirable, including ones with varying levels of difficulty, maybe paved versus unpaved. There was also a desire to have water access, whether that's through kayaking or fishing or paddle boarding, as well as nature play areas, and the various other adventure recreation activities shown below. Second of all, we also looked at nature-based recreation activity. Those are elements that maybe aren't your traditional recreation activities that you'd find in a park. This would be more suited to this site here, this nature park. So overwhelming amount of respondents preferred the bird watching activities and wildlife observation decks. We think that would be a great component here at this site as well. Plant identification and exploration, nature photography, and a few other elements that are low impact and easy to go ahead and implement. And then finally, we looked at educational and cultural features. Again, educational signage about plants and wildlife was highly desirable from much of the public, according to this survey results, as well as opportunities for outdoor classroom integration, park signage, guided nature walks, and potentially public art as well. So to summarize those results, we went ahead and we categorized the potential programming opportunities into 6 categories: ecological environmental, nature-based recreation, adventure recreation, comfort and experience, facilities, and interpretive education. With green representing the most important and red representing the least important, we asked respondents to rank those 6 categories. And as you can see in the cumulative score, ecological and environmental and nature-based recreation were the 2 primary. In fact, they're pretty much tied as the primary types of programming that we should be focusing on when it comes to programming this site. We took the information that we did in the site analysis and inventory phase, as well as the input that we've received so far from task force and from the public at large, and we created this really large matrix in Excel, very, very large. I'm saving you the brief on that, and provided the sort of results from that. So on the left here, you see the 5 most desirable or plan priorities from a site assessments criteria action item standpoint, and on the right, the 5 action items from public and task force needs that correspond with the site analysis. I won't go through each of these, but I wanted you to keep in mind that from the framework matrices, where we compare the analysis with the input, these were the desirables. And sometimes what we find is that some things are in conflict between what we see in the site analysis and what's desirable. And so that's a good way to help validate what the site can really sustain from both a marketing perspective regionally, as well as an ecological and environmental perspective. And so we took that into a graphic format, and this is a little bit more appealing than a large matrix. And what we did here, it was graphicized based upon those physical elements, where we could expect a variety of programming opportunities. So what this is indicating is the legend here on the left, the different various ecotones, if you will, and the bubbles on the right for our site, as well as identifying some opportunities for pedestrian and vehicular access onto the site. This is a high-level interpretation of how we could begin to create some sort of framework for programming opportunities. For example, where might a pavilion best be suited? And if you look at in these different zones here on the legend, it might be suitable for 3 or 4 different areas. Not that we would have pavilions dotting all over the landscape, but as we move forward, we want to consider that these are the primary areas that we should consider pavilions or parking or environmental education components. There's also an interesting opportunity, as you may have picked up earlier, on Seton Park to the north, and how that may play into what we're doing here at Lake Kensington. So we wanted to at least note to you all that with Seton Park being across from Daisy Lane, that there could be opportunity for pedestrian access either over or under Daisy Lane, yet to be determined, but didn't want to look that over. We still need to investigate that in further detail. Looking ahead, wanted to provide the schedule update for you here. We are currently in the visioning and concept plan, and our next steps will be meeting with task force and city council here in early 2026. And then ultimately we'll be culminating in a master plan report. So in conclusion of tonight's presentation and next steps, we'd like to let you know that, from our perspective, the survey respondents expressed a strong desire for an authentic Texas prairie environment that protects the land, wildlife, and heritage of the region while accommodating active outdoor recreation and educational opportunities. We are currently exploring how that will manifest itself in this conceptual plan, and we are eager to hear your feedback and input on what you all seen tonight. We thank you for your time. With that, I'd like to open for any questions or input. 158 respondents on the online survey.
That's in addition to those folks that were at the open house event and other ongoing dialogue with Stephanie. So how many were
158 online surveys, yes.
You mentioned that sometimes there's controversy between the two reports. Did you find that in this instance?
We did. One example would be educational programming. Let me go back here on the slides. For example, on the public and task force needs, there was a high desirability to accommodate school field trips. But what we were seeing in the site assessment and criteria components was the use or implementation of school activities was lower rated from like survey results, for example. And so writing that or how we really represent that's going to be important. We understand from task force that that's a really important thing for the community, and the survey kind of, as you saw in the prior slide, interpretive and education ranked the lowest. And so how do we incorporate that to fulfill those objectives is our next step.
I'm curious, education was something that I know some of the people were interested in, and there's many different ways you can do that. Considering it is in a 100-year flood plan, what were you considering for educational opportunities? Was it more thinking signage or a nature center? And if you do something like a nature center, I understand there'll probably have to be a lot more testing and paperwork and FEMA involvement and stuff. Like how much might that push the timeline back if they decide to do that, and how much more might that cost the city to do something like that?
Great question. For example, the types of programming that we might expect with interpretive and education could be a variety, right? It could be from the low impact level, like you mentioned, signage, wayfinding signage, species identification, things like that. We could also integrate it into the natural landscape in and of itself. Like you mentioned, the floodplain elevations, that could be an interesting way of indicating historical floods in the area, or how this site transforms over time. You could see it through that educational signage. One of the more complex ideas that you mentioned, which would be the interpretive center, that could take on a number of different opportunities or looks, whether it's a shelter that's on stilts, or it's something that's on grade that we would have to really balance, as you mentioned, sort of the permitting aspects of it and what that means to the overall valley storage. We'll need to look into that and ultimately determine. But we would like to understand your feedback specifically on what you would see for interpretive education centers. Is that something that you would find highly desirable on site, or is it a different type of element that's maybe not as impactful, and it's maybe more of an open air pavilion that has some of those signage elements?
So I work in K-12 education, and specifically science. And I think if you put out the ecological and the environmental and the signage about flora and fauna, and that we are trying to preserve the nature park, the teachers will build the educational piece. You put out like the components that they can use for that educational piece, but you don't need to create the education. That's their lesson plan to do. So I don't think that these are necessarily in conflict at all. I think we can do the part that is providing the information and let them do the planning that best fits their needs.
Yeah, we totally agree. And I think that whatever we would do, in my view, something like it wants to be flexible, because you're going to have different things that you're going to be calling out seasonally. It may not be the height of the hot season, but there's other opportunities that are out there for sure. I think the main thing is giving a venue that has some flexibility where you can whether it's experiments or it's interpretation or it's specimen collection, whatever those activities may be that are appropriate for the level. The great thing about a flexible venue is you can also use it for other purposes. It's not something that's just sort of geared strictly for education, for lab space, or lectern, or anything of that nature.
I mean, in my experience, and I was mainly high school, but I have a middle schooler and I had elementary kids. Teachers need a place that is close to go because it is easy to bus kids to it. They don't necessarily need you to provide the education yourselves. They're fitting it into what, like the TEKS that they have, like the essential standards that they're meant to be teaching. And y'all don't need to know what the TEKS are. You just need to know that we're putting all this stuff out, and then they can puzzle piece that together.
And I think some of what Patrick was alluding to as well is some of the interpretive elements are everything I'm sure you've seen in other facilities. Oh, I'm sorry. Thought you could hear me. Those other things that are out there is possibly, I should say possibly, that are interpretive, i.e., can you spot the species? Can you find this plant? That's more casual to where there's not an educator with just the casual, visitor to the park. So there's a lot of varieties like that, and we've already begun to do some studies with that. One of our team members is very accomplished in the work. That's actually their specialty is environmental graphics. Yeah, it's going to be a component as we move forward with site-specific design.
I have a question. That's in regards to some of the hiking trails that you were talking about. Is your plan kind of to keep it sort of primitive, or are you keeping it close by where, say, maybe the kids' trails might be, or is that going to be like a completely different area? And then also, do you have, a company that's going to come in and actually, figure out the trail system for that?
So in terms of hiking, it's a fairly flat site. So in traditional hiking up and down mountains and on the hills, probably not that. It's really referring more to soft surface trails, not your sidewalk trails, cow path trails, trails that people kind of create. So providing a level, what we see here from survey respondents and from the open house dialogue, that there is a desire from the public at large to have a variety of pathways, that we don't just have the 12-foot vibe trail going throughout the site. We think there's a preservation component that would also be desirable. And then there's just also the explorative nature of the site. So in terms of maintenance, there are different types of products out there. You could do decomposed granite, and there's sort of tackifiers that help prevent that from eroding and washing away, but it has a very low impact to the site. There's also compacted gravel, so just angular gravel that we can compact that creates a more of a bonded surface element and has a larger aggregate size than decomposed granite. And then you obviously have compacted earth, but they're kind of deal with some erosion issues on that. And not to say that couldn't be an option, but definitely something that we would want to explore. So we're seeing it as kind of being actually a variety of different surface types and elements, but also making sure that it is ADA accessible for the large majority of the trails.
I'd like to add a little bit more to that. Chris Scott, Deputy Director. There is going to be the typology variance that Mr. Patrick is referring to. But another thing to keep in mind, the Vibe Trail is going to be one of those alignments that we will be establishing within the site itself. But to that point, there will be exploratory options to the note on who's going to be designing the trails themselves. Ideally, this master plan is going to adopt an overall vision, and then from there, we're going to have to take it next level to get further into preliminary plan and construction documentation. So that's going to be at that stage where we're going to be able to determine, based on the report, here's the feasibility. This is where it makes sense to do X, Y, Z, and then from that aspect, then we could take it further, and then the maintenance component does definitely take a play into that as far as the decision making behind the type of material that we use. So just to give you that a little bit more on the planning aspect.
I guess my input would be I would really like to see invasives removed, such as vitex and crepe myrtle and ligustrum and plants like that, and have it be more of native plants, blackland prairie appropriate, like inland sea oats and things like that. Because I think it's important for people to understand the environmental impact that natives versus invasive or adapted plants have. I'm not a big fan of adapted either. I'm a native plant purist. But I also think not only from the educational standpoint, but also just it's really going to help protect the soil. It's going to help with the deep, deep roots that natives have, help with the flood, aspect of it. And I think, it also just helps bring back a lot of the fauna that we have and support monarchs and other insects and things that we really need to be supporting. So that's just my feedback.
No, I appreciate it. And I think that's largely the vision that is evolving. What we have to be cognizant of as we look at the master plan and how we're going to do the site-specific engineering is how we don't create an albatross of doing something, getting establishment, and then that pressure, just that environmental pressure of all those exotics and invasives and all those sorts of things, make this something that is difficult to maintain. So we're aware of that, but that's why we've got great team members that are going to really help us get to that place with that and prescribe that system of how we're going to do that. We've got experience with doing that, but we just have to know going into it, this is not a project that in its longevity is going to sort of be, hey, we established a prairie, now it's zero maintenance. That's not the case. It's going to be an ongoing battle to have to deal with those invasives and all those sorts of things over time.
I guess I will add to that. The city of Kyle is doing trail cleanup events and training people how to do stuff like that. So I know that there's going to be some citizens who might be willing to help with that. There's also the master naturalists, also master gardeners. So I think if we have programs like that for citizens and those programs to come help out, I think that can help maintain the native over time.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things we didn't really mention is one of our team members has actually met with staff to understand their ability as far as maintenance and what their desirability is. And one of the components that we intend to bring forward in the master plan is essentially a maintenance schedule, but also understanding the cost metrics of what that maintenance model will be. So hopefully we'll when we get to a deeper dive on that and able to take those various volunteers as well as funded organizations into account. That's great information. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that. Thank you, Fred, for that clarification. Next steps are going to be, like Patrick mentioned, we're going to be going to City Council, providing them with some concept updates, a little bit more refinement of what the aesthetics and what the vision could be. And that will be something that staff will be bringing back to you all to let you know, hey, this is what was presented. Here's the feedback from council. Do you guys have additional feedback based on what you're seeing? So just wanted to provide this as an update. I know we've been talking about Lake Kensington now for a few months. So wanted to bring a presentation to you all for you to be able to view and see where we are with the project. So thank you for that feedback.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and provide staff feedback regarding the preliminary concept plans for Greg Clark Park and Waterleaf Park.
Thank you. Mr. Adrian, if you could take us over to the next presentation, please. Thank you, Tamara. All right, so before you tonight, we have a presentation by Friesen Nichols for both the Waterleaf and Greg Clark Park master plans. Each park has two concept plans that are going to be presented, and we are very excited to show these to you. Just as an agenda, we're going to have an activity update, concept review for Waterleaf, the same thing for Greg Clark Park, public outreach summary, and remaining schedule and presentation. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Brian Jansen to go through their presentation with y'all. Thanks, Will. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Brian Jansen with Friesen Nichols. Thank you for inviting us back to the Parks Board to present kind of where we're at with each of these. Since we last met, which was back on September 30th, we've done a few activities we wanted to share with you guys. We had a staff visioning session with the staff to really drill down and get what the department's perspective is on these two parks. And then just last week, we had a West Side public open house as well as an East Side public house in which we hosted the community to come out, and we basically, the presentation that we're showing you tonight is very similar to what we relayed to the public, and so we're going to give you a little bit of an update on the results of that and some of the feedback that we heard. And then, excuse me, I guess on Saturday, the city held a pop-up event at Grinch Fest and did some outreach in that regard also. So Waterleaf Park, let's start here. So we are showing you two concepts for each park tonight. Concept A for Waterleaf, we're calling the nature and recreation concept. Just to give a little bit of context here, the bold white line is the Vibe Trail, which is going to be going in and out of the park and making connections to areas of the neighborhood. The blue line is the creek. The sort of dotted orange lines are some of the already existing trail system that are in those woods. And so this concept is basically an improvement and an upgrade, basically with the same general program that the park has now. We took a look at the ball fields. I know based on the pros plan, there is a deficit of diamond fields within the city, so we felt it was important to at least keep those on one of the concepts. But what we did do was reorient the fields so that they fit a little bit nicer within the space once the Vibe Trail is online. So that led us to looking additionally at that sort of drainage channel that sort of scars the east and west side. So the blue dotted line represents a meander of that drainage channel, which will allow us to provide some natural enhancement to the park, but also make it fit so there's a little bit additional room for other items. And so on the east side of that channel, where you have the open recreation area, the open fields, we are just going to expand that into a little bit more formalized open lawn space. And then here you can see some of the items, some conceptual imagery, nature trails, boardwalks. I neglected to mention, the boardwalks is that sort of red diagonal line that goes across the creek. So what we're looking to do is create a new experience within the woods in some of that low-lying land. And then again, mountain biking trails, reoriented ball fields, flexible lawn space, that type of improvements. Concept B is also heavily nature-based, but it also brings into the park an additional mountain biking program. Excuse me for 1 second, I'm gonna get a drink. Sorry about that. So what we're considering with this is really bringing some additional biking resources to a park within the city of Kyle. So this concept, while very similar, it's putting an emphasis on bike activities, mountain biking, pump track facilities, jump track facilities, but also keeping the ball fields and also keeping open recreation area, just in some of a smaller sense. So you can see those on this particular plan. There's a cluster of 11, 12, and 13 there on the plan. Those would be those bike activities. And so you can see some imagery of what some of those activities might look like. And so we feel like this would be a much more larger regional draw because people that use these, they're not everywhere. And so we would bring additional users, not only from the city, but also from elsewhere. And then again, some more representative imagery. So there you can see the two concepts A and B next to each other. If you'd like, I can stop here with this one and we can answer questions on Waterleaf, or we can do everything at the end. It's up to you.
I think
Let's break them up.
let's pause, yeah,
Okay.
and do one at a time. On all of the pump tracks, the 3 different kinds, are those paved or not?
Most likely they would be paved, yes. So that it's all weather use.
This is more of a question for city staff. If we went option B with the pump track, the funds for that, are there funds already allocated for this concept?
Yes, we have a certain amount allocated for, year by year, at least 5 million going into the park system. A lot of these from Concept B would be easy to realize because they don't take a major chunk out of the budget. As we're moving through concept plans and, if this finds itself in the final adoption for site plans and we move to construction documents, that's probably some low-hanging fruit with a lot of mountain bike concepts that we can get moving on pretty quickly.
Are we losing anything if we choose concept A? Concept B?
No, in terms of a recreational program, no, you're not really losing anything. There are already existing trails within that forested area, so it would just be a matter of kind of stitching in new trails where it made sense. Maybe dedicating some offshoots of those trails specific to mountain bikers. You still have your open recreation area on both concepts. Option B, it's a little bit of a smaller area, but you have the addition of the pump tracks and the jump tracks. And then obviously the Vibe Trail is the same on both. The boardwalk concept is the same on both. So it's really a matter of if you want to focus more heavily on the biking aspect of this park or leaving it sort of as is but upgraded, which you see in Concept A.
So I guess, in asking about the paving, mountain bikes don't go on paved they do go on paved surfaces, but that's not the fun. That's not what they want to be on. They want to be on soft surface trails, right? So I feel like we're labeling Concept B as the mountain bike one, when in fact, the type of trail that they would be more likely to use is Concept A, and there's a lot more of those orange dotted lines on Concept A than there are on B. You mentioned that a lot of these are kind of existing trails. Does that mean that we're going to stop servicing them? We're going to let them grow over? Are they not going to exist anymore? Because if they already exist, then it seems like they should be on both concepts. And I don't want them to go away.
Sure. No, we don't intend for the existing trail and all the efforts that not only the city but also the volunteer groups to go to waste. It would just be a matter of adding additional loops and runs and that type of thing within the existing trail system. So what we're trying to convey on option B is that there would probably be dedicated single track mountain biking trails within that area, whether they commingled together or whether they had little loops that were specific to mountain biking. That's sort of the gist of that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
We'll see a lot more mountain bike features in Concept B. If you go back you made at least one slide, I think, Brian, you'll see like boardwalk, some crossings, and another thing that the mountain bike community has expressed to us is they would like some type of destination features. And so for them, a pump track was really attractive. They call some of these areas bicycle playgrounds. So you take the Vibe, get you to the site, and then you can go off Vibe and go to some of the mountain bike trails. And same with the hiker. There's some single track hiking trails, as Brian alluded to, that people could explore. There's a ton of nature and opportunities back there. But when the kids who a lot of times are learning about mountain biking, and there's a lot of value from some of these features and pump tracks where they can be taught new skills and get ready for maybe some higher level mountain bike trails that might be at a different park system.
What did the public have to say about them?
We
The
will
A
cover
versus
that
B.
in a little bit with the summary results of the public engagement.
My husband and I were both avid cyclists from Seattle, and so for me, this calling any of this mountain versus off-road is a little hard for me to swallow because Texas to me is flat as a pancake.
Sure.
But I think it would be really nice to have a park where there is a lot of trail riding for cyclists. To, you know, if they have all-terrain bikes or even road bikes, but not necessarily paid, but at least smooth enough that some people who don't have the, you know, all-terrain bikes could use. I'm less enamored with the pump tracks and things, because I guess my concern is if we're bringing people from outside of City of Kyle, right now, our traffic on our roads are not in the greatest condition, and it's already, those things are frustrating to those of us who live within the city. And I'm concerned that maybe some of those things are not going to be continued to be funded with this current election. But I would definitely like to see a lot more places for people to safely bicycle in the city, because right now there just really isn't a safe place for us. I do not personally feel safe riding my bicycle to different destinations within the city with the lack of places on the road for us to go.
And really what David alluded to with the Vibe Trail coming online, that's going to be a key piece to that improving. And the idea is not only you're going to have sort of a regional connection that also has stubs into all of these other neighborhoods, which will be a huge benefit for, you know, just another mobility option for the city of Kyle to get to these amenities. Such as mountain biking trails, pump track, whatever the final amenity package looks like.
What about parking? Where do you
Parking.
anticipate that?
So
I think this little rectangle, eight.
yeah, so number 8 is the existing parking lot area, which is going to be expanded and improved, a project that's ongoing right now. And then the 8 that you see sort of on concept B, we recognize that if we are going to be bringing an amenity such as the pump tracks and the jump tracks, et cetera, we are going to have some place to park these vehicles. We heard from several folks in these neighborhoods that, you know, street parking was an issue. So we're aware that we need to mitigate that to the best extent we can. So the 8s are the parking areas indicated on this plan.
Are 2 and 3 paved? Is that where those are the trails that I thought were going away?
No, those would be
soft
primitive
surface?
trails as well.
Okay, then I don't feel as bad about less orange dotted lines.
Yeah, no,
'Cause now they're just green and blue.
It just got a little busy with the graphic, and so we just tried to convey it a little bit differently on concept B.
Then I kind of like the idea that there's a beginner and intermediate and then like a not.
And one of the other things we heard from a lot of the folks that came out for the public public meetings was that signage is a very critical piece of this. So pointing kiddos, you know, one which way or not pointing them another way. So we feel like that whole package is going to be very important, and that, you know, by doing this sort of, you know, with a real thought to how best we can service all riders at all levels with, you know, many different tools in our toolbox, this would be a really family-friendly, all abilities area for folks to go take their family and ride.
Are any of the areas like at the top left, kind of up there, or to the side to the left of the, I don't know how to explain this. Are there any other areas for parking? Because that is really small. I feel like,
So
kinda
in this
discourages people
particular
not to
concept,
go.
we would basically double the amount of parking as what's there currently. You know, I'm sorry? Is that including the parking on the dirt? Well, we're counting that as one half of the available parking at the park currently. And we would basically do a lot that is equal in size to that in addition.
And just to clarify, the dirt parking lot, we're actually going to be upgrading this fiscal year, and it's going to become paved and striped. So there's actually going to be more capacity by default to slip vehicles in there as well. Offhand, I do not remember, but there's definitely going to be more after it's paved because there'll be specific delineated spaces, and people won't be so spread out with their vehicles.
We heard that from several people. Additionally, there were concerns with, it's a little out of the purview of this project, but, speeding and things like that going down Abundance Lane. And so our goal and what we would try to do is make sure that our park itself all the vehicles that would be coming to this park would be able to be on the property and not have to park in the street.
And for timeline's sake, we're going to be likely bringing a contract to City Council maybe late February to start construction for that parking lot so we can double capacity and start to position ourselves to alleviate some of those concerns. And then you'll see another, in this concept B, there's a second 8 that's closer to the bicycle playground areas if we need to add capacity because we share those concerns with the residents, and this park's just going to get more popular.
And the parking that we're doing in the current fiscal year is going to stay, right? We're not like redoing it later? Okay.
Sure.
How much would 7's parking add on the second spot?
Just spatially, it's probably about an extra third as much parking.
And that's leaving the fields as they are?
Correct. Well, leaving the fields there, but reorienting them to a more desirable layout. So 3 fields there, we would keep 3 fields, but we would be upgrading them and moving them slightly. Okay. All right, if there's no other questions about Waterleaf, we can scoot over to Greg Clark.
Do y'all want our opinions now or a pick now? Do you want to wait until they're both done?
Why don't we wait till you've heard about the public engagement piece of this? And then we'll go from there. But yes, we do want your feedback for sure. We want to share with you what the public thought as well. Okay, so going on to Greg Clark again, 2 concepts. I don't know why my water turned yellow, but anyway, I think there might have been a translation issue between their presentation and ours. But anyways, this is concept A, what we're calling the central lawn. This is a pretty much complete reimagination of Greg Clark Park in its entirety. This particular concept reimagines not only what the uses of the particular amenities of the park are, but how you circulate throughout the park just in general, and try to make things a little bit more cohesive in terms of vehicular movements. We felt like it was very important that you could come into one entry within the park and get to all the specific amenities that you were going to. So if you wanted to go to the Ash Pavilion, if you wanted to go to the splash pad or the spray ground. It was all a more cohesive circulation route. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll notice where the pool is. This concept expands the pool facility into a full-blown aquatics facility. Both concepts do that. We heard that was a very important programming desire for the folks within the city. The Ash Pavilion would remain as is. We would reimagine the Little League fields into something a little bit more usable for the city. Those are the items 3, which you can see adjacent to the new creek, which we would, same thing on as Waterleaf, we would also recommend to put a meander into the drainage channel and to have it become more of an amenity for the site, not only, ecologically speaking, but also just, that drainage channel just really cuts the site into 2 specific areas, and we want to bring that together. This concept has a tennis court and pickleball court, which is 6 and 7 on your plan. 14 is the parking area, so this would have a much more centralized parking concept. And then up at the top, adjacent to the Ash Pavilion, we have a series of playgrounds in place of the old softball field that's up there in that corner. And then again, with the meander concept, this brings a really strong central lawn component to this concept, where you would have integrated playgrounds and other features kind of in a central core of the park. So here's just some imagery. Oh, and I forgot to mention that both of these concepts obviously include the skate park, which is in design right now as a major component.
And Ash Pavilion stays the same?
Yes. So again, the Little League fields would be moved and upgraded so that you'd have the home plates together so that we wouldn't have any more shared outfield situation like we do now.
Brown lines are cars and white lines are paved people?
That's
like
correct.
walkways?
That's correct. And then the purple dashed line on the east side, that's the area that's already sort of designated for the skate park. And then the blue dashed line at the bottom right, that would be the expanded aquatic center. And the dotted white lines are the parking lot representation.
So with concept A, are we looking at just 2 ball fields down there?
Correct.
So we're taking away.
2 standard size ball fields, yeah.
And then at the top left between Greg Drive and Ranger Drive, that's the field where they have the soccer.
Yeah.
games, isn't that right? So we would be reducing some of that soccer space to create parking.
Correct.
And is that okay with who we have a contract with right now for that soccer area? Or what? Is there
Or even the school. I'm pretty sure Wallace uses those fields too.
Yeah, so there's still flexible lawn space there. Where you might have synthetic go back, and it can be used for multiple uses. In regard to recreation play, there's going to be a lot more opportunity on that side of town, just with the sportsplex that's under final design now for the phase 1. And so our current partners expressed some interest to maybe expanding into the new site off of 1626.
So the sportsplex is gonna have Little League fields.
That's this is for in regard to soccer. In regard to the ball diamonds, as Brian mentioned, there's we call it a quad now, but the outfields are all shared. So outside of T-ball, they're not really functional for any other type of uses. So functionally speaking, you've got 2 fields. You've got field 5, which is closer to Veterans Drive, and then you've got the shared outfield, which everybody's batting into each other. And so it's not really a net loss unless you've got T-ball. We were also looking into expanding a lot more opportunity for diamond fields at other some other parks, holistically speaking.
Yeah, so Veterans Drive's up there, that field is going away too.
It would just be, for all practical purposes, relocated, because now you've got 2 ball diamonds in Concept A in that sort of southwest quadrant.
Yeah, so we're going down from 5 to 2. Yes or no?
Yeah, well, functionally speaking, though, you've got 4 outfields hitting into each other, so when you've got anything outside of T-ball, you could only use that one field for play, because everybody's batting into each other.
Can we see B?
Yes.
Here's B. And this concept we're calling the meander. This concept does what A doesn't do necessarily, in terms of we would really look at the bones of the park itself. Number 1 is the park drive, which we would leave basically as is, and maybe just reimagine how the parking falls off of that main park road. Up at the north, where the existing ball, Field 5, is that what y'all refer to that field as? Yeah. That would be more of an active recreation hub, where we would have tennis courts, pickleball courts, potentially a little, monument sign on the corner. This concept reflects something that I wanted to bring up as well, in that since this is a long-term vision of a reimagination of Greg Clark, the city has made an investment on several properties at the corner of Veterans and Center. And what we did was, when we looked at this, we identified several other parcels that may be ripe for bringing into the park. There's a county-owned facility that is labeled number 4. That's where the AMVETS facility is. And then this concept also takes in a good chunk of the existing parks maintenance facility, leaving the water towers as is, obviously. And then the same thing with the VFW, looking at that as sort of an aging facility that may make sense somewhere else in town. It's a city-owned parcel. So just wanted to point that out to you as well.
Are there currently thoughts about where to put all our veterans?
Well, to be clear, we've got the Parks building that's aging, and you've got the Veterans building that are aging, but we have no intentions to move them out. This is a multi-year master plan. As you all know, there's not an infinite amount of funding, and so this could be something that, some phases of this could be just shovel-ready plan sets that might just sit for a long time, but it's if and when we're ready to move on a property change, these plans are available to say, hey, remember the park, remember the park needs that are out there. But right now, we don't have plans to relocate our maintenance building nor the Veterans facility.
The veterans probably need to hear that, because they're freaking out about being displaced again when they've invested in those properties.
Well, thank you. For the record, it's stated. Thank you, Ellen.
Okay, so moving back, the main feature of this is also this sort of naturalizing of the main drainage channel. We've been approached by the engineering department that there may be a situation in where additional capacity for stormwater might be needed in this area of town. And so what we're trying to do is look at, is there a way that we could sort of kill 2 birds with 1 stone? If we brought in additional capacity within the park, then would that prevent a very engineered, very uninspiring, rectangular detention pond being located elsewhere? So that was what was led to this meander concept, in that we would expand and lengthen and get an additional storage volume that may be able to eliminate the need for additional detention off of another property adjacent to the park. So as the center feature of the meander, you'll see 10, which would be a nice formalized central lawn space. We would also suggest maybe a boardwalk complex for this, maybe adding in the opportunity to do some stocked ponds, something to that effect. Again, the aquatic center expansion is also a major component to this plan as well. Obviously down in the bottom right-hand corner, and then a large monument signage there at the corner of Veterans and West Center as well. This concept has 3 ball fields in it, so that's an additional add for this particular concept. And then again, planning out some additional park features for some of those additional pieces of property that could have a potential to be park expansion areas. And then obviously upgraded playgrounds, new and additional playgrounds, upgraded basketball courts. Again, I mentioned tennis and pickleball, so we would keep most of the amenities that are there now as part of the future concepts. They would just be sort of rethought out and sort of packaged into zones that make a little bit more sense. And there are just a few more images of some of the other key components. And there are the 2 concepts side by side. And if you all would like to ask some questions about either of these, I'd be happy to answer what I can. And then the next is we'll talk about the public engagement.
Is there parking all along those roadways, or where do
So,
people park?
In general, the areas that you see that are bounded by a white dashed line, those would be the parking areas. So again, we know that if we expand the aquatic center, that's going to take a pretty sizable parking expansion. Obviously, if we're doing more ball fields, putting all of those spaces together where it makes sense is obviously key. And same thing with sort of that recreational hub up at the north with all of those. We've got a little lot dedicated up there as well.
What's happening with the triangle at the bottom that has the small monument sign in it? Because it feels like that's a bunch of like space that doesn't have anything going on except for like the paved kind of walking trails. And if we used that for parking instead of the VFW and the maintenance, which we don't own.
Sure, and that's just for conceptual sake. Obviously, that monument sign would not be that large, the size of a detached garage or anything like that. So yeah, all of those things we can certainly bring those further down and expand that. We would we're just really trying to get a sense of a concept preference. So once we go to the next stage, we're really going to start to spatially define what these things will actually look like as part of the next step in the master planning process.
Can you put up concept A and B pictures next to each other? Because so it looks like in concept A, you're gonna keep the Adkins pool, but in concept B, you're gonna turn that into parking. Am I reading that correctly?
No, the pool facility would remain as is. It would just be expanded. So we would probably take some of the portion of those existing lots that are to the east of the existing pool and expand the aquatic center, but then also in concept B, the parking lot wraps around that newly developed site. But yeah, the pool concept would remain as is for both concepts.
Okay, and then also my other question is, right now, I think I hear from friends and other people in the community that they're frustrated that there's not a year-round place to do lap swimming. So if we do add an additional pool area, is there going to be somewhere where people can do lap swimming year-round, that they will have a little bit of respite from kids actively playing in a pool? Or at least maybe have designated times in a certain pool where people can do lap swims year-round? Because there is the Nitro place, but Nitro does not have open swims. They only do classes and team swimming. So there's currently no place in the city, Kyle, for people to lap swim year-round.
That's probably a question better left to the staff at this point.
Yeah, for us, it's all, also about the seasons as well, and then with that comes a budget, so that would be a big package that we would have to also assess as we went through. But that's something that we could explore as far as extending or getting them, getting the season to open up sooner for lap swim. But that would be a bigger discussion as far as budget impacts for seasonal wages and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just
Chemicals
find
as
it
well.
interesting that coming from Seattle, that lap swimming outside is almost year round. And yet it's really only warm enough there 2 months out of the year. And then here, probably 9 months of the year would be perfect for swimming outside, and yet you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, and that would be a part of the upgrades to the pool as well, because it's not climate controlled. So that would be a part of the upgrades for the aquatic center as well. So that could be a possibility as we move to it, and any upgrades that come with the aquatic center.
Any other questions?
Did you say there was a stormwater benefit with the meander?
Yes, ma'am. So the stormwater capacity benefit that we've sort of been talking, separately with engineering, the idea is to see or to study if there is something we can do by meandering and lengthening that existing channel to provide more storage. So yes, there would be an additional storage benefit to the meander in terms of the stormwater capacity.
Creating the drainage,
I'm sorry?
are you creating the drainage, how it's going, like
So
the directions of it?
the direction, yeah, we would have some flexibility, but the drainage pattern is set, like it, drains, south to north, I believe.
Well, with these patterns that are on these concepts?
Yeah, we would create those, and then, just a matter of setting the flow lines so that, it would act and be engineered as it's designed to function properly.
I'm curious about the feedback
Me too.
you received.
Yes.
Let's get into it. Okay, so we had a west side and an east side dedicated meeting for each of the public involvement activities. The west side meeting we held on December 9th. We had approximately 40 participants, so that was, I felt like a really good attended event for all the other things that are going on right now. And then we had one on the east side of town, and we had approximately 60 participants. So I think we were all very pleased with the amount of folks that took the time to come chat with us and see what the concepts were. We did three main things. We asked all of the folks that came to kind of hear our spiel about both of the concepts for each park. We asked them to provide their just general comments. You can see the boards that we used right here with some of the comments. We asked them, we gave a dot exercise, so we gave each participant 5 colored dots that they could pick their preferred concept and their preferred amenities. And then we just thought their general comments for, stuff that they would ultimately write down on some of these sticky notes. We had really good participation of all age levels. We had that little photo of that young lady that was very engaging, and so that was good. So the drum roll moment here is that concept B was
Landslide.
by and large the preferred concept for both projects on both nights. We did have a group that was probably overrepresented in the community. Our mountain bikers came out in force, so take that what you will, but they were very passionate about it. They liked the concept. They felt like they were being heard, I think. So again, the concept B was the preferred choice, both parks, both nights. And then this is the image board. So obviously you can see that the mountain biking and biking related ones are that middle row on each concept. We had a few surprises. We were a little surprised about Ball fields not being a high priority with this particular group, but again, that could be, we were overly saturated with mountain bikers.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How many, I guess, the people who voted for the mountain bikers, how many of them were registered in Kyle?
I don't have any way of giving you that information. I know we did have some folks that had traveled.
From San Marcos, from Limberleaf?
Yeah, but we didn't get addresses or anything at the meeting.
Can I ask why we don't? If this is going to be in the city of Kyle, we should take the citizens' votes more than someone from the outside of Kyle.
Because they bring their dollars with them too.
It's gonna be a lot of money.
It's not,
For a contract that's free.
yeah, it's not customary for an open house type town hall to, credential folks coming in, but, there were at least a few that traveled, we know, just based on comments we got.
There is a specialty bike shop like right over here though that does like custom bikes and fixes bikes, and Hayes High School has a huge mountain biking club, so even if it was overrepresented, I think the number that were there that were actually from our community was probably greater than the number that's from elsewhere, and the people who are from elsewhere probably ride with the groups from the high school anyway.
Yeah.
So like it's still, they're riding as a group, as an activity that is in Kyle.
And
It's like
Board Chair
the
Fishbeck, we did have a
sponsor.
large representation from the Hayes High School mountain bike group.
Yeah, I think that's a fair representation of what went on. Again, they were very excited. A lot of them were wearing their bike team jerseys, and they were very happy to talk about, their club and their activities and stuff like that. And they were very excited to see that something like this was being considered. And then here is the preference boards for Greg Clark. Some of the highlights on here, the big highest ranking ones based on the dot exercises were obviously the Central Lawn, Aquatic Center got a lot of votes, walking trails, splash pads, playgrounds are always big hits. And that was kind of across the board, both at the West Side meeting and the East Side meeting.
Shade, shade, shade.
So just to summarize, tonight we're doing our second meeting with this group. We will be doing a very similar presentation to City Council on January 9th to get their feedback. And then we will be in front of you one final time with the final concepts and everything based on all the public engagement, the feedback we've received here, as well as staff recommendations. And that will be on February 23rd, and then the final pass with the City Council will be on March 17th. So I look forward to seeing you again. Sorry, my voice kind of.
And also, at this time, we'd love to take
Yeah.
your feedback. We've heard from the public at the public meetings, and we want to hear what you guys prefer in each of these respective concepts.
I really like the boardwalk concept that provides a lot of options for residents and those around us, just to take family photos.
Yeah,
Right now,
absolutely.
we're looking at doing family photos, we're looking outside of Kyle, just because our natural nature trails and parks aren't up to where we would like them to be. So just as a mom, thinking of, family keepsakes, I really like that concept of having
Okay.
some really nice boardwalks between our parks.
So would that be at either park, or should we go back, Brian, to the comparison to Waterleaf Park?
Yeah,
Side by
so
side for A and B?
just as a reminder for everybody, the boardwalk concept was in both A and B of Waterleaf, and then concept B of Greg Clark also had a small boardwalk component. Probably not as natural for photos, but just as a reminder. So let me see.
Did you have any kickback on relocating the ball fields to where the soccer fields are currently for the Meander and Greg Clark?
No, I did not personally hear a single comment regarding athletic fields. We had several folks that were there when they heard that, you know, the ball fields were going to remain and possibly be upgraded, and they were happy to hear that. But again, we didn't have a big Little League presence or anything like that. So I think it was just generally, you know, a mom or a dad that had kids that participated in these sports were just glad to see that, you know, some fields were going to be upgraded and remain.
Did you have any negative feedback, any absolute no's for either concept?
No,
on
it
either
was
park?
it was a very positive series of meetings. Everybody was really excited about the direction of the concepts. I think they were excited that they got to have their voices heard. So that was really encouraging to see. You know, there's always some concept or some comments that I guess could be considered negative, but a lot of times those really don't have anything to do with the scope of the project you're talking to the folks about. So, but yeah, it was very, very positive engagement both times.
Yeah, I would add, I think Brian mentioned it too. We actually had these boards as well at the Grinch Fest this past week, and the feedback that we received was positive, but traffic is a concern, I think, for most of our parks, just with the adequate parking that we have and the expansion of parking. So depending how heavily we want to amenitize some of our parks, you know, could drive more traffic, even if we're trying to go with a 10-minute walk campaign, which we try to get folks to walk to the parks. That's primarily it. The other big component is restrooms. They want to see more restrooms in our parks, where even if you have Waterleaf here on the screen, you have a restroom right by the playground. Well, if we are going to create more ball fields, which we do have a soccer field out on the right of that channel, can we have restrooms on that side too? So that was the feedback that we received, just proximity and really just accommodating all those uses was, whether it's positive, negative, that was the feedback that we got.
Can you go back to the Red Clark Park, please? I have a question about the ball field, actually.
Which concept? B?
Or either one. Why can't we put the ball fields on the infield facing out instead of in?
Because then you can't use it for Little League?
Yes, you can. If they're right here, you build the fence like San Marcos does. San Marcos has their Little League fields facing out, not in.
Right.
So if we're gonna completely move everything like that, why wouldn't we look at putting the infields like in the center?
That's what we would do. Like if you notice, for example, on 3, dot 3, that would be a triplex. So all the infields would be tucked together in the center.
Well, I'm talking about like where they're at right now.
There's really not the size in that area to construct a ball field in that arrangement. So it would be, you know, you might be able to get 2 fields where you have 4 existing if you reoriented the fields to have, you know, basically the home plates together. So, you know.
Yeah, they fit 4 because they shared it, they combined outfields. And we agree, we question the design of that. Like, why would you have everybody hit, that's what I was referring to earlier. Why would you have everybody hitting into each other? Well, it's because they thought, well, we're going to maximize ball fields, but practically speaking, everybody's hitting into each other, to your point. And so what you see in concept B in the meander, that's maximizing. To us, that's even offering more practical play space because you've got outfields that are actually like batting away from each other, not into each other.
Well, this is thinking further than what, I don't know if y'all have already thought about this stuff, but these can be like Little League fields, and those can be like for older, you know, middle school, when you get to that league and stuff like that.
You're right. If you did shrink the size, you know, with a full-size fields or, you know, 90-foot fields, like, you know, there are things you can do to, it'll accommodate any age group. But yeah, there could be something where you say, all right, we don't want to go with adult size or regulation size, and maybe we can look at rearranging things for smaller fields at the site. We'd have to look at the appetite and then system-wide, like when you look at Cal Vista, which we're exploring some things right now to bring some diamonds to Cal Vista, or if you look at Waterleaf Park, look at what's going on with rectangular fields and say, okay, how do we give everybody how do we maximize it and spread it around so it's in close proximity to everybody? We're trying to look at it holistically. But if it shakes out and it's like, we have more demand for Little League at the site, it's something we can consider, and you're right, you could fit a little more.
I think New Braunfels has that problem. They have two different fields that they have to play on with Little League.
Is it possible to increase the size of Greg Drive Road since nothing's there quite yet? And then that way we could have parking for more of the ball fields up here at the top of Greg Drive. Because I feel like everybody's just going to start street parking. And then it's going to just be a nightmare.
That whole square, right?
Yeah, that-
in white is parking?
Correct. That would be the dedicated ball field zone.
Right, the housing development's up here, so that's going to be crowded.
No, like
And then,
in the back.
but it's,
Yeah,
it's
right
just,
there above where it says Ranger Drive, that entire mass would be dedicated for parking for the ball.
I've played baseball my whole life, and I'm telling you that you're going to get people who are parking on that street, and it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah,
Because
potentially.
there's not
I mean,
enough space.
It kind of goes a little bit more with what the desired outcome. Like if you have a facility that caters to tournaments, the parking demand is 3x what a little neighborhood, ball field might be. So it kind of depends on what direction the city wants to move towards in terms of the end user. I don't think any of us are contemplating any type of tournament related. This is just sort of
You never know.
at this particular site, I'll put it that way.
Plan ahead.
And Susan, we're looking at other sites that might be more conducive to tournament play. We did, because what we hear for Greg Park, it's so family-centric and something for everybody. We were looking more to keep it recreational type
It's right
usage.
in the middle of all of these neighborhoods. Like, it's
Yeah.
not a good place to host tournaments
Right.
anyway. Because if you have tournaments there, you could turn the whole thing into ballparks and parking, and then that sucks for all of those neighborhoods around there. Like, this is my family park. I live where I can walk to this park, and we go there regularly. I don't think this park is the Little League tournament park. I think we have plenty of other spaces where we could approach that more effectively than the one that's right in the middle of town, right off like our main drag that is like our little historic kind of city center. I don't think we want to bring tournament traffic to Center Street.
Well, a couple of months ago, Chris, you said y'all wanted to have tournaments at the skate park or a big turnout like that, and that's what I brought up.
Yeah, so there are opportunities, I guess, for tournaments, and there's a variety on the scale of tournaments. So I would say that. So if you're talking about adult softball tournaments, and me coming from an athletics background, I know you do have the ability to probably host. If you have 6 fields, you could bring 100 teams to that complex. With 3 fields, if you were to try to do a 2-3 day tournament, you're probably talking about 40 different teams. That's 10 players per team. That's so many X number of cars. So that's what we're talking about, driving that additional traffic. But the skate park itself, even though we are talking about some of those tournaments, that's a different type of audience in the sense of the number of people that typically attend that yes, it could still be considered a tournament, but it's not going to be 8-10 different people per team on top of the spectators that they're bringing. So it's more of an individual sport. So there are opportunities, and not to mention, you have the pool. I mean, when we talk about maybe the expansion of the pool, you're also talking about additional parking and additional visitors. But the main focus, the main intent is to offer more of a recreational aspect. Can people still go out there and rent out the 3 ball fields for a tournament? Yes, potentially, but it would probably be a smaller scale tournament rather than it being more of this regional kind of draw. It might just be either like our league play that we just have our day-to-day tournament. So that's what we envision for that. But you are right. The skate park, there is a talk of potentially bringing and driving some type of skating competition to that. But I don't think it's going to be to the scale of what we're talking about in adult softball or even at soccer tournaments.
And sometimes, we have the need for recreation in you know, in our department, like recreational type sports, and T-ball was a, pardon the pun, a big hit. And then you have adult softball that's wildly popular there as well. And so the city would take those, like for a recreational park like this, that's meant to be more family-centric, we would take the cream off the top for that to meet our program and recreational needs for park and recreation type programming.
Yeah, this is not a rent it out for club kind of park. The idea of this particular park and this particular like piece right in the middle of town turning into what the ball fields are down at San Marcos right off 35 is like nightmare fuel. Like, I do not want to bring club Little League to this park. This is not the right thing.
So we're hearing from Parks and Recreation Board that we want to keep this more recreational type play.
I'm speaking for myself, but I think this park is not that park.
What
I
if
agree with
we will
her on
note
that.
that.
What if you just, instead of 3 fields, what if you just did 2 fields? And then where the one on the left or whichever, you could keep that as just a green space for, you know, picnic benches or soccer fields? Because I don't think the soccer is on this one, is it?
A dedicated soccer field is not identified on here. However, there is still ample room, green space, to be able to kick a ball, be able to throw a football, but there's not a dedicated multi-purpose field. Another idea that we have potentially, I know it's just a placeholder right now, what you see, three diamond fields there. We are looking to size those appropriately for not only adult softball, but various ages. But there could be an introduction to the point that you're making. Let's have 2 regular sized fields and maybe a miracle field. We are talking about the all-inclusive kind of aspect, not only to having an all-inclusive skate park, definitely going to have an all-inclusive playground. What about a miracle field, which is a different scale for field space? So that could minimize the space that you have there and give additional room, but that could be feedback that we could take back and figure out.
That kind of meets the inclusivity goals of the master plan too. I really like this one in particular. I think that getting rid of the roundabout was the right move because there's much less road through the park in this one. I think that the parking situation over by the aquatic center, part of that would be much better allocated to be along that strip of road, like kind of in between where the number 5 is and where that road is right there. Just kind of do a strip right there so that it can go either direction in the park and leave the leave the veterans alone. That's kind of, I think, because if we're talking about this being, we can't do anything with it in the future because we don't actually own that land and we don't know what's going to happen and it might just sit there for a long time, then why are we going to make a plan that's just going to sit there for a long time when we could just use space we already have? And because there's nothing in that area right now.
Okay, so for the area where the Veterans Building is now, if hypothetically within 5, 10, 20 years, if they were to say move into something that's better because it's an aging facility now, then we could go the direction where we just really don't even count on that using that space, but it's city land, and all we're saying is that opportunity afforded itself because maybe they got something bigger and better down the road, that this could be a possibility. If we don't program it now, parks may not be prioritized as a leading priority and need for this area, and maybe it's not by that time in history. Same with the other properties the city's acquired. There's no promise to us that this is going to be parkland, but what we're saying by adopting this is if you're going to do anything with it, remember you got a ton of park needs out there, and there could be the possibility to expand it. And here we've taken public input, and they said if you do anything with these lands, including the park maintenance building, this is what we would prefer you do to meet the park needs. But again, 15 years down the road, who knows what the system will look like as other parks get upgraded.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for keeping the parks maintenance building there as well, just because we're like an aquatic center and all of these other things are going to need some maintenance. And if it's just right there, like, isn't that easier long-term for y'all as well?
It could be. Same with the Veterans Building. There could be future where a Veterans Building would stay. It makes sense to stay on the same site. It's just a possibility. I've also responded to another resident earlier today to say for the Parks Building, there could be opportunity, based on feedback like I'm hearing now, to say, hey, what about integrating these into these spaces somehow? Let's explore that opportunity. That's all we're doing is gathering feedback, but that's definitely a possibility as well.
I mean, you could put the soccer field that y'all took away there, hypothetically, if we could use it.
Yeah, like, it could be open space play, could be recreational pickup game type play where, the nice thing about having open lawn and not designated, and we call it multi-use, is it might just be, hey, we don't want to put on reservations, put some synthetic turf down where it's low maintenance and just make it kind of pickup play. The more you formalize it, the more it's, people want to go and have league play there. So what am I hearing from the park board, that you kind of like the pickup idea with multi-use, or would you rather, okay, more recreational, consistent? Okay, thank you all.
Everybody good? All right, I'm gonna move on to the last one. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and provide staff feedback regarding general departmental updates on community events, programs, aquatics, TRAPS conference, park TEC projects, and capital improvement projects, and future meeting dates. Thank you, by the way.
Sorry, just gonna get to the slide. All right, good evening, everyone. Amy Garcia, Assistant Director for the Parks Recreation Department. Like you mentioned, I will give some updates for the new employee overview, community events, programs, aquatics, and also go into the TRAPS conference, which is the Texas Recreation and Park Society. And then I will pass it on over to Chris Escoto, Deputy Director, to finish off for the online resources and Parks TEC projects, as well as CIP and upcoming Parks and Recreation Board meetings. All right, so I am happy to announce that we have our new division manager for recreation. Her name is Sidani. I would allow come on up. We will do, I'll let her give her intro from here.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Sidani Appel. Come from the city of Pearland, where I had about 4.5 years of recreation manager experience. As my slide says, I have 12 years in total. Before I was with the city of Pearland, I was at the city of Hutto. Same role, coordinator, moved into recreation manager. Love Parks and Rec, love what we do. Thank you for serving and providing your feedback to better the community. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
All right, and we are excited to have her. She is on week 2, starting today. So we've had a fun-filled first week, and so she was able to be a part of Grinch Fest and everything else. So just to dive into community events, we will do, I know we did not have the November meeting, so we'll give a quick recap on some of the November events, and then also kind of touch a little bit on December as well. You may not see all of those things on the slide. But in November, we did have our Jams on the Green on November 6th. We had Yesenia and the Groove Doctors and the Grooves. This was a makeup date from our July 4th event, so that was reallocated resources for this edition. And then we had our Movies in the Park at Greg Clark Park. We had the Fall Guy. And then we jumped into Kyle Market Days and our Veterans Day Parade, if anybody was able to make it out. It was on November 8th, and we had the performance by Go Machine. And then we had our family skate night at Ash Pavilion on November 14th. We did have our DJ and food vendor out there. And then we had our sports and social squad banquet. So this was our Special Olympics team sports banquet. That was on November 19th, and we combined this with our social squad group and program. So going into also here in December, we did our December 1st, Santa's Arrival. We kicked off the holiday lighting as well, and that is at 3 parks, which is Mary Kyle Hartson, La Verde, and then also Lake Kyle. And then that jumped into our 25 days programming. So we on Thursday nights have date night, and then Fridays, Family Fun Fridays. And then we had our All Abilities Dance on December 5th, as well as Shopping Saturdays and Social Sundays. This past weekend, we had our Grinch Fest. If you guys were able to make it out, we had about 2,000 to 4,000 people come out. It was a good, steady flow, long lines for the Grinch. Everyone wanted to see him. So
This weekend will be the last weekend for our 25 days. If you guys are able to make it out, we will have Family Fun Fridays. We'll have Santa coming out, and then we'll have a special surprise as well. All right, and then let's see, I just mentioned all of these. So again, this is the last weekend for the 25 days programming, but I would like to highlight that the lights will be on through the rest of this month and into January 2nd. All right, so our programs, we will have Senior Bingo on December 18th with the Kyle Area Senior Zone, as well as December 19th for the Senior Chair Volleyball. And December 27th, we will be doing the Bird Walk. And January 2nd, we will do another Chair Volleyball, as well as another Bird Walk on January 5th. And if you are looking for any registration, that can be found on kylerec.recdesk.com. We will continue on with landscape design gardening classes. And January 22nd, steeplechase trail cleanup, conservation connection, and then a winter pickleball tournament on January 31st. We will also be kicking off our youth basketball league. This will kick off January 24th for the first day of gameplay. Our spring break camp, I would like to highlight, we will be starting this on January 2nd. So registration will open January 2nd to register for spring break camp. We will have T-ball league, paint and sip, and tennis lessons. Also registration open for those. And tennis lessons will kick off in March. And then we are also doing registration for youth flag football. All right, to jump into aquatics, we are in the middle of hiring our aquatics coordinator. So we're looking for someone to start by January 2026. And then right now we're going through winterization, and that is being done in-house by our Parks TEC staff as well as our aquatic technician. And then we will be having seasonal hiring beginning here in January. So if you have anybody interested, we will open those positions up, and that can all be found on our City of Kyle website. And then James Atkins Pool is scheduled to open, of course, the Memorial Weekend, which is May 23rd of 2026, not 2025. And then the TRAPS Regional Workshop. On November 7th, some of the Parks and Recreation staff attended the 2025 Central Region Workshop. We did have a presentation by John Davis and Calvin King. They presented on native plant list, and we had over 40 attendees between the 2 days. The first day, which was on November 6th, we had staff participate in the maintenance rodeo, and some of the events that we participated in were backhoe, truck and trailer, nail driving, plant ID, and irrigation. We did have 3 staff that qualified. We had Claudio Quintino getting 3rd place in the zero-turn mower, and then Conrad Chappelle? I don't know how do you say the last name, but he received 3rd place in the plant ID, and then Calvin King placed 5th in the plant ID as well. All right, any questions regarding any programs, events?
Where was the basketball
Basketball sign-ins in this past Sunday. Mm-hmm. So teams will be notified this week about what teams they're on, and then their coaches as well. I'm sorry?
All the divisions filled up?
They did not. There are some divisions that need to be combined due to the lack of registration.
I was just going to comment that on the senior programming, sometimes the staff doesn't show up and the volunteers just carry on and put out the equipment and stuff. But I just wanted to note that there have been some absences of staff at those events.
Yeah, I'll talk with Dawn. There was December. We did agree that city staff wouldn't be a part of December. So we'll continue that conversation with Dawn in our monthly meetings, and I'll talk with management as well. Thank you for letting us know. Any other questions? All right, I will pass it over to Chris Escoto.
Thank you, Amy. Chris Escoto, Deputy Director. So wanted to talk to you guys about some online resources. If you haven't heard, I think we've talked about it, but the city did have a new website that launched. Rather than it being .com, it's .gov now. So if you go to City Parks webpage, it's completely new and revamped, and we think it looks great. So shout out to our communications team for putting all that together. I do want to remind you in a few instances or a few initiatives that the city does offer called the Transparency Portal. If you go to the Transparency Portal, there is a new feature now. There's a project dashboard as well as an open data portal that exists already, but just wanted to give you a little bit more context that whether it's the board or the community themselves, if you're interested by a certain project, you could go to this project dashboard and everything is GIS located. So just a little bit of feedback that we call a transparency portal to engage with the community, as well as the open data portal that you'll be able to see various budget initiatives as well as KPIs that each department has. So wanted to provide that as a tool. So going over our Parks TEC projects and CIP updates, right now we are in the winter season. So there is a number of projects, I think a few of you were here this past January where I provided this is what we did over the month of winter. We did 20 trucks or school buses worth of mulch that we installed at various parks. So we'll probably be doing something similar to that as a end of year report. But overall, there's a number of activities that each one of our divisions are doing. So not only winterization, Ms. Garcia talked about winterization for the aquatics. We're also winterizing several of our irrigation. There's a lot of planting occurring right now. Right now is the perfect window to plant and remove a lot of invasive species as well. So there's a number of things. So in case you see our ball fields being closed down and you start seeing people going out there and improving them, that's one of those instances that we'll be doing this season as well. So number of projects that we have in line. CIP updates, as I do every month, just give you an overview of what we're currently working on, and there are anything that's green I'll be talking about at the end, just giving you a quick update. One thing that I do want to note for this slide for public art, if you notice on the right, there are some imagery and some current concepts or stage of where the Sky Blooms project is. That's a sculpture that's going in at Steeplechase Park. We're still in progress for installation in February, but here's a progress photo of where we are on that project. CIP updates. So the one update that I do have that I wanted to provide you all with regarding the Transportation Alternative Grant through TxDOT, we were notified that unfortunately we did not receive that award. That was a segment that we were looking to connect the Philomena segment from Steeplechase. We do feel with the planning efforts that we're continuing to do and have these shovel-ready documents like the master plan that you just saw, it'll better prepare us to submit for grants. So that was just a stab that we took at that potentially there was opportunity for that. But because, and that's just my interpretation of it, there's a gap that exists between Steeplechase Park and that property itself that's not owned by the city, so it wasn't contiguous. And so that's probably one of those efforts that we need to just work with the planning department on figuring out how we could bring that potentially within the system, or at least an easement opportunity for us to be able to connect that trail. So just wanted to notate that. CIP park projects, there's a number of projects, as you can imagine. You heard today about Lake Kensington. Sportsplex project is something that we're currently working to get to a phase 1 of 30% plans. And the all-wheel skate park I'll be talking about here shortly. Any questions about any of these projects? All right, Waterleaf Park, Steeplechase Park, those items have been presented to you, as well as the Maricao Hearts and Restroom that I'll be talking about here in a little bit. Be talking about these projects as well. One thing that I do want to touch on, the park signage plan, that is something that was presented to council this past month. Overall, we got good feedback, and it was pretty much in line to what this body provided to us. It seemed to be, they were on the same page, so just a quick update on that. We do envision bringing that project back within the next month or so, just to give you an update of where we are with the park signage plans. KCC, we're going to be talking about here in a little bit, and as well as the Pocket Park. So just want to recognize those that attended the Waterleaf Playground. I know we didn't meet in November, but this was back in October 31st, and we had a great turnout, actually. It happened to be on Halloween, so we got some cool Halloween photos of the kiddos out at the park. Overall, it was a good good showing of those that were in attendance. So again, thank you for those that attended that event. So far, we've heard nothing but great things about Waterleaf Park. And as you saw just a little bit ago, there's also a number of upgrades that the community is excited for. So happy to see that they've enjoyed that playground. The all-wheel skate park, that construction has started that you haven't seen. So the demo of the tennis court is no longer there, and they actually started grading today. So they're going to you'll start seeing quite a bit of dirt just being moved around and starting to get formed for the various improvements that are going to be happening regarding the skate park. We do envision completion of that project summer of 2026. So as we get further along with this project, I'll be providing you all just with status updates of where we are with the project. Steeplechase and Waterleaf parking lot. So this is a project that unfortunately has had a little bit of a delay. There has been a number of responses that we've been working through the development review process to be improving it, or we're trying to improve that process, but there's been a number of delays that have occurred just on comments. So that's something that we are looking to work through, but we do still envision having that project out for bid here in the next couple weeks, and then ultimately starting construction this spring so it could be open in time for the fall. And one of the things that I want to make you aware of, because of the sequencing that's going to have to occur, Steeplechase Park, there are 3 different parking lots that exist, and we can't close them all at one time. So some of the review process that we're going to be doing is how do we, what's the timeline going to be when it comes to the construction aspect? So as far as the phasing of it, so we're going to have to figure out some type of phased approach to close certain parking lots. So that's part of the review process, but just want to notate that for the record that will be something that we'll be working on rather than closing all parking at one time. We're going to be coming up with a strategic way for that construction. Plum Creek restroom, this does not look like this anymore. As of last week, there's actually a restroom in there now. We walked it this morning. It looks great. One thing that we're currently working to do is install an ADA compliance entrance to that trail. It is going to be open, but because of the Plum Creek Vibe Trail construction that will be coming this next spring, there'll probably be a period of time there that will be closed. And eventually that trail is going to tie into this restroom. As of right now, it's just going to be temporary access, probably decomposed granite for the time being. But once the construction for the Vibe Trail comes in, it's going to be a concrete path for ADA purposes that'll be installed to this restroom. So we'll give you a photo of what it looks like next month. But you can also, if you swing by and check out the park, you'll be able to see where the restroom itself. The KCC Center, so this is a project that is well underway in construction. As you can see, there is quite a bit of dirt in there. So they're currently working on electrical and plumbing installation to the building. If you've driven by, you've noticed that there's some construction fencing that's been established. So work is well underway, and we are, as far as I've heard, we're still on schedule for everything. One of the upcoming things that we'll be working on this project is getting the furnishing package when it comes to the furniture, such as the multi-purpose rooms, offices, and so forth. That's something that will be going to council here in the next month for us to be able to get it fully furnished in time for the opening. Last but not least is the Heritage Live Oak Parklet. I believe it has a name now, Stagecoach Road Park. And so this project itself, if you haven't seen the video, it's pretty impressive to see how the tree got moved from its original location to where it got relocated to. So the tree has been transplanted and is in its new location. So currently what we're working on is finalizing the schematic, the 30% schematic plan, and going into further construction documentation for us to start construction of it this next spring, as far as creating that parklet or that pocket park that was presented to you all back in, I believe that was in September. And with that, just wanted to leave the upcoming board meetings that we have. One thing that I do want to note that we'll be bringing at next month's meeting is going ahead and identifying the holidays or dates that we have interference with park board. So such as Memorial Day or Thanksgiving or Christmas, those are going to be dates that we'll be coming back next month to talk about and go ahead and get on the books. So with that, if you have any questions, that's all I have.
Program where you can go rent yard tools from them,
Where you can rent what, sorry?
like yard tools, like weed eaters, stuff like that. I know, I think it's the city of Round Rock that does it.
No, it could be something we could look into. The only thing that comes into play with that, I would say, is the risk aspect whenever you're lending motorized equipment and liability, stuff like that. But we'll look into the Round Rock program and see what that looks like. Are you referring more towards
It's typically
projects?
probably a code enforcement where they can, like, people can utilize tools for a lawn. I've seen cities do that before. It's usually through the department that manages code enforcement. I'm not sure if Kyle has something like that, but we can look into that.
I'm just saying because spring's gonna be here faster than we know it, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that's planning, then we'll talk to our planning friends and see if that's, pass the message along and see if that's something they can implement.
I have a question about the tree. When do we expect that piece of Stagecoach to be open again?
Good question. We could follow up with that. Not exactly sure what the timeline is for that
I think
road.
it was in a newsletter and I just can't remember.
Yeah, I know that they just finished moving the tree and establishing it within the last week or so, and I know they got to get that road established again, but we could follow up with the email and get that to you.
Thank you.
I noticed about a month ago that the Parks and Rec made these really lovely magazines with all the events coming up in the next few months. They're really beautiful publications, and I think that's really great for people to see all the wonderful programs that we're doing. Is that something that we're going to continue doing? And how are we distributing them and letting people know that they can find those?
Yeah, great question, and I see Amy's ready to answer that.
Yeah, so we will continue the publications. We'll have 3 more going out for the rest of this year, so we're looking for the March edition to come out. Right now, we are utilizing our city facilities and then also giving them out during our events and giving them to any programs that are also existing. We are in talks with Communications because I know that they mail those out. That's a different production portion on their front. But that is something as we continue to grow and we print more editions. Right now, we're at about 500. And we're just trying to up the exposure for the Parks and Recreation Department, but that is a future possibility.
Yeah, because I guess my only issue is when you have them at our facilities and our events, it's typically people who are already looking into what programs and events that we have. And so there's a lot of people out there who don't know about a lot of this stuff, and they're not going to get that exposure to those publications either.
Yeah, and so what we're trying to do is deliver them to some of the local businesses as well, if they're allowing us to put them out, and then also any of the schools that are, even if we put an addition on the table for someone to flip through while they're waiting at the school to pick up their child. We're looking at different avenues, but we'll continue to explore.
And that may come with a budget impact. In our exploratory process, if we find that we just don't have the budget to print them out and distribute citywide, that's definitely something we can ask for in the upcoming budget window as an ask for Park and Recreation.
Could it also be sent as an electronic thing? All those people that sign up for the Kyle e-News, maybe that same distribution channel could be used for that information?
Yes, and we do have an electronic source also on the city website if they're looking to see it online. But what we're trying to do now, and this is an idea from our special events manager, that we're doing a QR code for anybody that doesn't want it hard copy. We're going to have it digitally for them just to scan at some of our events, or even just to give out a little QR code to pass out to friends as well.
To add on to what Ellen was just saying, people who sign up for the e-news, that again, we're preaching to the people who are already interested in our programs, right? So I guess I'm just really interested in engagement for folks who don't know at all what is going on within our city and all the opportunities they can get involved with.
Yeah, and if you have any other ideas as far as anywhere in particular that you'd like us to even market towards, we're all ears as well. But we're going to try with the schools, because trying to get the locals out as well, and then local businesses.
A big old QR code on the sign right there where Walmart is on the access road, so people can actually look on what road is to turn, what road is to go straight, and a QR code while they're waiting.
Are we talking about the street signs? Sorry.
Joke. Never mind.
I did not get that. I was like, you
went
can
over
really
ahead.
Get them
But-
where they live, in front of Walmart, right?
I think it's one thing that we do know that we're trying to reach out to more community members. There are a lot of community members, even when we have these events, they just show up. They're like, oh, I didn't know you guys do this, do that. So it's something that we're aware of. And so thank you for that feedback. And it's something that we could take back to our communications team and brainstorm.
Maybe on the outside of the glass, you can put a QR code, you know, as they walk by back to the city building.
Right.
If they don't wanna come in, oh, cool, I'll just find out if it's from here, you know?
I think the mail would be a great idea. I know some people are always, I mean, you have to look through it no matter whether you have bills or not. I mean, yeah, they're annoying, but, you know, like a big cardboard thing that says, you know, Kyle events for December, and then things are listed, and, you know, I think that would be cool. I would totally like throw that up on my fridge, and, you know.
Yeah,
that'd
and
be
like
cool.
Mr. Lopez was mentioning, that the budget impact that
budget,
goes
yeah.
along with that. So we can also identify that as we go through and try to go with, collaborate with our communications department as well as, again, trying to enhance. I know that we're gonna have the quarterly, some of our events will be highlighted in the quarterly impact, quarterly newsletter that comes out as well.
Maybe not as mailers, but where I go get my mail, I have community mailbox and there's a little bulletin board. So if you gave them to HOA, then they could put that in their little weather housed bulletin boards, and that might be an easy way to do it. And if it's a continuous QR code, that's one poster at each little mailbox. That's much more cost effective than printing a bunch of them.
Yeah, got that down. Thank you.
Perhaps the HOAs would be willing to distribute it electronically also. That would be a good way to get it out.
Yeah, you guys have some great feedback for things we can do in the interim within our budgetary limits, and also things we can aspire towards for further reach for maybe next budget season. Thank you all for that.
I wanted to make a comment about the state conference coming up in February. I registered for it lately. It's Texas Recreation and Park Society, TRAPS. It's February 10th in Corpus Christi, and I'll be glad to share a hotel room if anybody is interested in going. They have a retiree rate and a student rate, and they don't do any vetting, so if you wanted to register as volunteers here as a student or a retiree, go for it.
And you could go and cheer on the people who qualified to go to state with their zero-turn mowers and their plans ID. That's fun.
Right.
We'd love to see you all there.
Anybody else? All right, y'all. So I would love to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody. And would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, so meeting is adjourned at 8:02 p.m. Thanks, y'all.